142 more Starbucks workers have filed to join Workers United over the past 3 weeks, including in Arlington, Virginia, and Shavano Park, Texas.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Last Week in Southern Labor is a segment that we do mostly every week, where we tell you what happened in the labor movement in the South. We pull the information from Jonah Furman's newsletter, Who Gets the Bird, which compiles all this information for the entire United States. So if you want to see what's going on outside of the South, then subscribe to his newsletter, whogetsthebird.substack.com. And with that, let's jump into new organizing for the weeks of September 10th through October 2nd. And just a note, because this is a 3-week edition, some of the smallest filings have been left out. In Erlanger, Kentucky, 900 DHL workers are officially unionizing with Teamsters Local 100, having filed a petition after openly organizing for some months. 550 workers for utility line construction services in Region 10, headquartered in Indian Trail, North Carolina, are organizing with IBEW Local 379. Having announced their campaign last month, 180 workers at GE Aviation in Auburn, Alabama, have formally filed to unionize with IUE-CWA. 142 more Starbucks workers at 8 stores have filed to join Workers United over the past 3 weeks, including in Arlington, Virginia, and Shavano Park, Texas. 61 workers at independent bookstore McKay Books in Knoxville, Tennessee, are unionizing with CWA. This is happening after the Chattanooga location has already filed for a union election. After the big win at the local Hine Brothers coffee chain, 35 more baristas at Sunargo's Coffee in Louisville, Kentucky, are joining the same union, which is, oddly enough, the National Conference of Firemen and Oilers, which is primarily a railroad union, which is somehow an affiliate of 32BJ SEIU, which is primarily a janitorial and doorman union. Just funny stuff, funny stuff. 32 AV workers at Houston, Texas's Wortham Center are joining IATSE Local 51. 31 food service workers at Eglin Air Force Base, Florida, are unionizing with OPEIU Local 4873. 16 hotel workers at the Hampton Inn in Glen Allen, Virginia, are joining Hotel Workers United. It's unclear if that's an independent union or something with Unite Here or Workers United. In election wins and losses for the past 3 weeks, 727 nurses at Ascension Seton Hospital in Austin, Texas, have won the biggest hospital union in Texas, joining National Nurses United in a 385 to 151 vote. Very impressive margin of victory.
Absolutely.
Huge bargaining unit. That's going to be really great for nurses across the state of Texas. The Texas Observer has the full story. The Starbucks Workers United campaign added 236 members after 10 stores voted a combined 93 to 28 to unionize, including in 3 locations in Texas, in Houston, San Antonio, and New Braunfels. 73 Starbucks workers at 3 stores, including in Lafayette, Louisiana, voted a combined 23 to 30 against joining Starbucks Workers United. 69 workers for Diversified Gas and Oil in West Virginia voted 44 to 21 to join the Steelworkers Union. Another location of retail chain Half Price Books has unionized, with 17 workers voting 9 to 8 in Louisville to join UFCW Local 227. As that union drive quietly rolls on, 7 concrete truck drivers for IMI in Scottsville, Kentucky, voted 6 to 1 to join the Teamsters Local 89. 6 staffers for energy efficiency nonprofit EnergyWise in New Orleans, Louisiana, voted 4 to 1 to join IBEW Local 130. 475 subcontracted airport ground service workers for Jetstream in Charlotte, North Carolina, are at the center of what looks like a turf war between the machinists and SEIU 32BJ, and grad workers at Duke in Durham, North Carolina have dropped cards in their campaign to join SEIU, which was inconclusive after their last vote in 2017. In strikes and bargaining, folks, the country got within 20 hours of a national freight rail strike with 120,000 workers ready to walk, or just as likely, as we have talked about on the show, get locked out by the carriers, before Marty Walsh tweeted that it was all over. The main upshot is that it is not, in fact, over, but it is deferred at least until mid-October, or more likely December the 9th. Whatever happened in that room between Marty Walsh, Joe Biden, and the heads of the rail unions and the heads of the freight rail carriers, they did manage to kick the can past the midterms, past the major harvests, and into December. Just this past week, the Machinists District 19 announced a new tentative agreement as well, delaying their September 29th strike deadline all the way to December as well. And the IBEW announced that their members voted to ratify their deal, making them the third of the dozen unions to sign on to a deal. The biggest wild card currently is BMWE, the Brotherhood of Maintenance and Way Employees, the third biggest union involved, whose vote results will be announced on October 10th, but who, as far as we've seen, have not announced whether they're joining up on the December 9th strike deadline or if they would consider walking earlier. It's hard to see all of these passing ratifications since before that, internal polling by these unions had the passing rate, had the acceptance rate by members at something like 70% against. 70% against. And so considering where members were before these new tentative agreements and how little additional benefits are in the new deals, it's difficult to see a 30 to 40 point swing in the yes vote for these contract agreements. So we'll see what happens there. Meanwhile, the United Mine Workers of America strike at Warrior Met in Brookwood, Alabama drags on. And the NLRB has downgraded the financial penalty that the union has to pay the company back down to the $400,000 price range, as opposed to the $13 million that they were recently assessed, per Warrior Met strike reporter extraordinaire Kim Kelly. Meanwhile, outside the airports, the Southwest Airline Pilots Association has asked for mediation, which is a formality under the Railway Labor Act, but technically an escalation nonetheless, and picketed at airports, as did the Southwest flight attendants, with the Transport Workers Union Local 556, who also asked for mediation in July. Delta pilots with the Airline Pilots Association are one step ahead of both of them, having initiated a strike authorization vote already. UPS aircraft mechanics with Teamsters Local 2727 have quietly reached a new 2-year tentative agreement, though it is still subject to a ratification vote by the members. There was some fascinating and unusual public sector strike activity in the South last week with non-union public workers in Selma, Alabama, Lowndes County, Alabama, and Hinds County, Mississippi, all going on strike. A paper mill owned by WestRock in Russell County, Alabama, was facing down a strike of 450 workers with Steelworkers Local 971, 1471, and 1972, but they are now locked out. We're going to be talking to Bobby Watson later about that. 1,100 steelworkers at Constellium in Ravenswood, West Virginia are facing down a strike deadline as workers have voted down a contract over 6 days. Get this, currently the workers get none. The workers get no sick days. The workers voted down that contract over the lack of sick days and over contracting. Apparently, a last, best, and final offer is being presented by the company before the strike deadline, but only changes the wage offer. So here again, just like with the paper mill in Russell County, Alabama, the company is trying to buy these things that are really not monetary in nature. The issues that these workers have are not monetary in nature. They are their living standards, their work-life balance, and they are surrounding, with the subcontracting, the integrity and unity of their union. And it's going to be difficult to buy that off of them. Starbucks Workers United went on strike in Atlanta, Georgia, and Raleigh, North Carolina last week. In the meantime, Starbucks now says it wants to bargain, giving a 3-week window for bargaining at all 240 some odd stores that have won a union vote. Workers at Amazon in Stone Mountain, Georgia went on strike. At Labor Notes, Luis Feliz Leon looked at Unite Here Local 355's strike threat at a big hotel in Hollywood, Florida, and how sometimes just a credible strike threat is enough to get the goods. The expiration deadline of the national contract covering 50,000 U.S. Postal Service workers with the National Postal Mail Handlers Union, which is a laborers affiliate, came and went with a brief bargaining update and nothing in the 2 weeks since. There's no threat of a strike here, but would be curious to know what exactly is holding things up and how members feel about it, as it is a very, very large contract, 50,000 workers. In political fights, Lee Harris has a fantastic and wide-ranging piece at the American Prospect on the shift to a green economy, unions' role in it, and the Democratic Party. The election is coming up, and workers in Tennessee will vote on whether or not to place right to work in the state's constitution. We've got to dig more into that, talk to some folks in the next few weeks about that. And finally, in internal union politics, there were several union conventions over the last few weeks, but the only notable thing came out of the Amalgamated Transport Union. Came out of their convention last month, where the union doubled and expanded their strike pay. They committed to open bargaining and internal union organizer trainings and nuts and bolts reforms that can meaningfully impact worker power on the job and in the union. So very good updates from the ATU there. Looking forward to seeing how that goes in the next few years. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.